it's certainly the tie with the most collective Champions League together. Given both clubs' rich history, it's the most successful and third most successful clubs in the competition. And also, there's the fact that they met as recently as May in that Champions League final. So Liverpool have a little bit of a revenge mission here. Given, I mean, it's not just how Madrid beat them in May, but how often they've beaten them in the competition in the last few seasons. There was a 2018 final. There was also that quarterfinal in that lockdown campaign. And so it's a highly charged game. And at a point when right now, I suppose there's an element of uncertainty about both sides. Again, I mean, you almost don't want to use the word uncertainty with Real Madrid, given the way they came through last season. But at present, Karim Benzema is injured. They're a great talisman. Well, Liverpool, we don't really know the sort of team that they are right now. But there's 3 months until the fixtures, so who knows what can change in that time. Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, they've met a few times in the last few years as well. It's swung a lot. Most recently, there was in the knockout stages, there was that remarkable game in 2021 where Mbappe was again superb. Bayern were missing Lewandowski. They're missing him now, but have evolved since then. And again, that's another tie at a very interesting point for both clubs. Bayern obviously starting a new cycle with a new team, and Paris Saint-Germain. Well, I mean, it's not so much new cycles there. It's just it's ongoing, ongoing evolution. They try to work out what best way to go with so many stars, and we'll see what sort of form they're in after the World Cup by February, whether things have settled. But it's another one of those games where the quality is matched by the unpredictability. It could have been so much worse for Conte and Tottenham, and you can't escape the fact that as uncertain as Tottenham have been lately, as much they haven't really looked like a Conte team and almost kind of lacking in intensity, they're better than Milan right now. It points to the gap between English football and Italian football. Also, there is this theory going around about Spurs, an informed theory, I would say, where Conte has altered their conditioning program so that they are at their physical peak in the last few months of the season after the World Cup. If that's the case, we could be looking at a very different Tottenham. Then I suppose we could be looking at a very different Milan as well, given that in the group stage, they were obviously so hampered by so many injuries. But certainly, either if they're going in the situation they are now, or if we see both teams restored to better form, Tottenham Hotspur have to be the favourites there. So Conte might well start to address this rather poor Champions League record he has. City's knockout ties are always framed by this inability to win the Champions League so far, and Guardiola's propensity for decisions or for overthinking, as the debate has it. But one thing City are very good at is just kind of dismissing these sides or of a lesser level. I can think to a lot of Leipzigs over the last few years of City. They absolutely destroyed Schalke one year. They've gone past Dortmund in recent knockout stages, and yeah, you'd expect them to make a light work of Leipzig. I would think Dortmund, Chelsea. I suppose the danger in these situations is to get a little bit influenced by Chelsea's recent form, and specifically, I suppose, that defeat to Arsenal. I think they are better than that. They've had some key injuries. And also, it's a little bit like the Milan-Tottenham tie. There is this financial gap between English football and the rest, and particularly England super clubs and the rest. So you think all going well, and if everything is relatively normal, Chelsea should come through that. Dortmund, bar a few sparks, some performances, they probably haven't set the world alight, but equally, they haven't really imploded in the way a lot of people probably felt they might after the loss of Erling Haaland. You know, they've kept a certain consistency, they've kept an approach, and a lot of that, of course, has to do with their next star, Jude Bellingham. And I suppose that'll be something else that kind of frames this game as well, given every single big English club is looking at him. Brugge Benfica is really it's essentially the tie between, I would say, the two greatest starts the competition so far this season. Brugge have been the revelation. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're the team with the potential for that great story. Also have that bit of history, given they've actually been in a European Cup final before, losing to Liverpool 1-0 at Wembley in 1978. And then Benfica, of course, came through. Came through that group, which you would have. Well, I suppose there was always a bit of doubt about Juventus going into it, but to finish ahead of Juventus is one thing. To finish ahead of Paris Saint-Germain, something else. And yeah, they did it through this this brilliant attacking form, this potential for goals, and of course the form of Enzo Fernandez, who's been, again, to continue with the theme of this tie, one of the revelations of this season. Certainly, I think that's one of the most interesting things about the competition this year, that it feels like, because of so many of these big ties, it's opened the way for something different again. I mean, Inter Milan Porto, I mean, I suppose this shows the direction of European football. That is actually a classic European tie, really. With 5 Champions Leagues between them. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we're talking about a giant match. It's just the nature of European football now. It's not quite what it was. And we're talking as both clubs in terms of surprises. But then there was an element of surprise in the way both got through their group stage as well. Inter Milan getting beyond Barca to finish behind Bayern Munich. And Porto having been absolutely dismantled by Brugge, who are the real revelation of this campaign, to still finish top of the group was impressive resilience. Given the nature of Napoli's season, I don't think they're going to be in a situation where they're underestimating anyone, because it feels like there's so much of this emotional momentum carrying them. Part of it is just how they almost tear at each team in the same broad approach, which is sticking to this exhilarating attacking play that Spalletti has. And so I wouldn't fear them underestimating Frankfurt in that way, although they will naturally be pleased. I think maybe a bigger issue is whether momentum has waned by then, but much of that might be dependent on where they are in the Italian league, and much of that, of course, depends on how they adapt after the World Cup. But Napoli actually have got a bit of an advantage. Napoli have a bit of an advantage there. Sorry, I'll say it again. Napoli have a bit of an advantageous situation there, because they don't have too many big players going to the World Cup. In fact, most of their stars, including Kvaradona, who we all call now, rather than saying out Kvaratskhelia, because we're also pronouncing it. But I mean, he suddenly got a month to rest, and I mean, it's actually the sort of tie where you can feel that momentum building for Napoli again.